about what is BoldTrail, who is BoldTrail, and what can BoldTrail do for me, right? So without further ado, we'll go ahead and just dive in. I wanted to show this graph just because it really shows you the journey we've taken as a company. We started out as Conversion. I don't know if any of you remember that name, Conversion. And then KV Core was born essentially to help us broaden our reach. Who can we help in this space? We were really catered to small companies, teams, and we knew that we could have an impact on larger businesses, individual agents. And so we've really tried to scale the business to service every individual. And then we also, over the years, have curated this list of what we believe are the best point solutions in the space. So, we added in things like Circle Picks, which is for listing and brand promotion. You've got CMA and presentations. We've got recruiting, retention, AI and emails. We've got lead gen. We've got basically anything you could need that historically you've had to log into 27 different platforms to get the services you're looking for. And what we really wanted to do is also solve for the fact that we just want you to be able to log in one time and access everything you need in one platform. So here's another question I get when we're going through some of these kind of features and what BoldTrail can do for me. I know feature comparison is really big for you to understand what you're getting. So I've listed out some of our primary components here that you'll get with the BoldTrail platform. And you can kind of read through those. But, a lot of people are, do I have an IDX website? Yes, you do have a website. Do I have marketing? Do I have lead nurture capabilities? Yes, you do. And you have a lot more. There's, ways to personalize the platform to really align with your business goals. And really anything you can think of, you can get it in the platform, or we likely have an integration for it. So as we're talking, there's this shift from KV Core to BoldTrail. I wanted to point out a few things that you'll notice if you're migrating. So if you're KV Core today and you're migrating over to BoldTrail, here are a couple of things you're going to notice when you log in. And maybe you have logged in and weren't quite sure what these features are, but if you haven't, also, you can just think of this as a sneak peek. So this is your Omni search bar that the little video is walking us through. There's a search bar up at the top, and historically you could search for leads in that bar, and that was the extent of it. But we're making this more functional, and that means you're able to also search for places in the platform. So if you need to find lead engine, you can type in lead engine in the search bar, or you can type in property boost if you want to run a property boost ad. So it helps you locate different places in the platform without having to click around. You can just type in Omni search and it'll pop up all the resources and links for you. And this is going to be sort of the future of the navigation of the platform, where we're constantly enhancing this and improving it and just really trying to streamline your experience and make it easier to use. We have also enhanced the mobile app, and later on I'll talk to you about some things that we are working on in the mobile app, because we have some pretty awesome new features coming out. But the new mobile app that you'll experience moving over to BoldTrail is faster and smarter. Obviously, it's mobile. We've built it with you in mind. We've streamlined the navigation in the app. We've created clearer task actions, making it easier for you to log in and see what you need to do, what needs attention, what you should be focusing on. And we've also made updates to the UI, or the user experience and interface, so that it just looks a lot cleaner and easier to use. And then we've got custom pages. This is probably one of my favorite new features. This was also one of our biggest requests. We had a lot of agents who were wanting to create custom pages and just do things to put more relevant content on their websites and drive more traffic to their websites. And what that used to look like is either you needed to know how to code or you needed to hire somebody who knew how to code. And so what we did is we created this space where you can easily create custom pages that align with your business goals and puts whatever relevant content you want on your site without having to code. It's all templated with an inline editor, and it's really easy to just click in a section and edit the text, or you can drag and drop certain features like buttons, text boxes, pictures, things like that. So fully customizable, making it really easy for you to take your website to the next level. I'm having an issue clicking here. Okay. And there's a lot more. So we've modernized our interface and our user experience. I think you'll notice what we're doing is really just making it easy, cutting out all the noise so that when you log in, you know what you should be focused on. We've made call and task management a lot easier and more streamlined. We've also gotten our MLS listing deduplication working and launched, and that is really exciting. That's something that we've been wanting to do for a while, and it's here now. So what this means is we automatically dedupe your listings across different MLSs, and that just makes the user experience a lot better for you and for your consumers when they're looking for listings on your website. So I'm going to dive into some things that are a little bit more strategic. And before I do that, I just want to give you a quick why. So I want, by doing this, by talking about some of these strategic things, I hope it'll help you understand why we create the way we do. Why does Inside Real Estate create the tech the way we create the tech? And really, it's because we understand these strategic principles and concepts and how they tie back to your business. And so as we go through this, I'll try to tie this back to what we know are business problems for you and how we try to solve that with the technology. So this quote will start with, you don't automate to get rid of the human, you automate to amplify the human. And I will add in AI here too, right? Because automation and AI, they sort of go hand in hand. It's doing things that are smart, that you don't have to worry about. And it really is meant to help you cut out a lot of the heavy lifting of things that agents had to do before technology. So the reason we created these tools is because we needed maybe an assistant and we didn't have one. And so what can my technology do for me? Okay. So if we look at the biggest roadblocks for increasing GCI, this is what we've narrowed it down to. You've got lead generation, lead follow-up, lead conversion, and client management. So this, whenever we ask agents, what are your biggest challenges, it always boils down to these kind of 4 buckets. And so this is what we're going to talk about a lot today. And this is what we're going to sort of show you how we help solve for those problems. All right, and then let's talk about this battle for the consumer. So this is a thing, and and there's a couple things that play into the battle for the consumer. So there's consumer demand and consumer experience. This is really driven by a lot of companies that aren't even in the real estate space. So things like Amazon, Google, we'll name a few more later. But basically, what they've done is they've created this experience where people can get almost instant gratification. They want information, they Google it. They want a product, they can overnight it. They want recommendations, Google, Amazon, they've got the algorithm, they've got, they can make recommendations that the consumer is actually going to want and be interested in. And so because they've done this, it's changed the way that real estate agents have to market and cater to their leads. And then on the other hand, you have this big dog competition where you've got big portals like Zillow, Rocket Mortgage, Porch, A lot of those kind of big portal companies who are really aggressively pursuing your consumers. And they're doing it with your listings. They're doing it with all the listings. They have a lot of information, they have a lot of resources. And so there's this battle for the consumer where you've got to realize you are competing with them, even though the experience is very different. And what I will say about that is there's good news. So even though we've got all these big portals, we know from these statistics we got from NAR that in relation to the consumer journey with the real estate agent, 90% of consumers started their search online. 85% visited an agent website during the home journey. So not a portal website, not a company website, but an agent website. And then out of those, 75% of them registered for listing alerts on an agent's website. So what this tells us is that we really have a big opportunity to connect with and work with these leads. The agent is still very important in the process. And as many people as would really like to do things on their own, generally what we see is they'll do a lot of pre-research and then they'll get to a point where they discover they really need an expert. So the last thing I'll touch on here is today's consumer demands personalization. And you look at these apps and I'm sure you can see things that you use pretty regularly. And what happens again is you log in and your first login, it'll say, what are things you're interested in? What kind of books are you interested in? What kind of music? Or, whatever it is. And then it'll take those as initial recommendations. And then there's some sort of algorithm or coding that's running that's allowing their apps to watch your behavior and get behavioral insights. And then it serves up a really tailored experience based on things that have a really high match to what you've engaged with in the past. And that's how it's creating a personalized experience for you in those apps. And understanding how important that is to your consumers, I want you to recognize that they're also looking at that from a real estate perspective. Even though that experience is very different, they still want a tailored experience. And you can do that. We can help you do that. So let's spend a minute talking about this foundation for growth concept. This is another area where I get a lot of questions. And I've just had a conversation with an agent last week who was saying, can you help me with my sphere of influence? The answer is yes. Can you help me with new leads? The answer is yes. Can you help me with my leads who are unengaged? Yes, we can. We don't just focus on one area because we know that you're servicing a holistic customer journey and life cycle. So we've created tech and we provide the best tech that is going to allow you to be found by new customers. This is how you're getting in front of new eyes and growing your audience, growing your pipeline. We do things that allow you to be connected when those new leads come in, or when you get somebody who's engaging in high intent activities. We have systems in place that allow you to get to them quickly, connect with them. And then we also, on the longer term, have ways for you to stay involved with those leads and have conversations with those leads, even post-close. So once you've closed a client, or if you've got people who are just in your sphere, maybe friends or family that have never transacted with you, but you have an opportunity to transact with them in the future, or maybe even get referrals. So let's talk a little bit more about being found. And what I will say is one of our pieces of tech that works really well is your IDX website. So your primary goal with being found is to drive consumers to your website. And you can see all the arrows coming in. I like to frame this like all roads lead to Rome, and your website is Rome. You want to have as many lines thrown out there online that are coming back to you in one way or another. And so, you've got things like referrals, and that may not necessarily be online, but there's a lot of different ways you can reach your audience. So you could be doing Facebook ads, or you could be doing free Facebook posts. You could be doing search engine ads. You could just be having conversations on the phone or sending emails or postcards with a QR code, and all of those things end up coming back to your website. So you have a website, and your responsibility is to drive traffic to it. And then we've got this lead funnel. So I always take a minute to talk about the lead funnel. My primary takeaways for this slide are that, first of all, you need to be adding leads to your pipeline every month. We know that agents who add leads to their pipeline, and I'm talking 40 or more leads per month, are going to have more success than agents who are not adding leads to their pipeline. If you're looking to grow your business, you have to grow your database. And what you see here, suspects, website visitors, leads, prospects, active consumers, this is the reality of the funnel. This is how people come into your pipeline, and we know this to be true. So we know that probably 85% of the leads that come into your system, especially if they're online leads, are going to be in the top of the funnel. So they're going to be right up here. And then you get probably 15% that are going to drop down. So the way I like to think about this, if we take 10 leads, we're going to be able to have a conversation with probably 5 of those. So a few of them are not going to answer. They're not going to be responsive, and that's okay. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But you just want to let them into your system. And then you'll be able to talk to probably half of those. And out of those 5, you're probably going to get another half, maybe 2 or 3 that are actually actively looking to buy or sell. And then out of those 2 or 3, you might have 1 or maybe even less, since we're only using 10 leads as an example, who are actually motivated to buy or sell a home in the next 3 to 6 months. So you can see how if I do 10 leads, I end up with less than 1 transaction. And if I magnify that number, if I start getting 40 leads and you cut that in half and in half and in half, how your transaction likelihood increases, right? And so in order to do that, you have to be adding a mixture of different kinds of leads. So we think about this like spending time or spending money. And you can kind of see some examples here. You notice I've got Facebook on time and I have Facebook on money. I think this is one of the prime examples, because you can post, and I'm sure a lot of you are already doing this, where you get a listing, you post it to Facebook, right? But who does that get in front of? Who is seeing that post? Your friends, family, past clients, people who follow you on Facebook. And that's probably, if we're being completely honest, less than 1% of your total market. And so that's where money comes in, and Facebook has ads you can run. And when you run an ad on Facebook, it knows that you don't want to target people you already know, because you're doing that. So what it does is it opens up the market, and it gets everybody else. So when you're paying for ads, you're getting in front of new eyeballs. When you are making posts on your personal profile or your business page, you're staying top of mind. Does that make sense? And staying top of mind is not a bad thing. That's a great way to start getting engagement from people who have maybe been sleepers or unengaged, or people who would be giving you referrals. So there's a lot of different options here, but you can see what I mean by you've got to spend time and you've got to spend money. And we have a lot of ways to do that in the platform. One of the things I love is the playbook. And I wanted to just spend a second talking about the Promote a Listing playbook, because what this does is it brings together all the tools you need to effectively promote your listing, and it will get in front of everybody in your sphere and your existing database. And then it's also got tools to get you in front of a new audience. So not only will this help you sell your listing faster, but it helps you stay top of mind. It can help generate new leads just using one of your greatest assets, which is your own listings. Most of the tools in this playbook are free. I think there's one that has a cost associated with it, and it's a very, very low cost. So if you haven't checked out playbooks and you have BoldTrail currently, go check that one out. Every time I talk about it, I have agents come to me and say, oh my gosh, this thing is so cool. I had no idea the system could do all of that. And the reason is because you have all these different menus on the side here where the tools live, and the playbook just brings them all together in one location, making it really easy to use. And then there's also tools like if you come here into the lead engine, a lot of these are free. There's the Property Boost, super low cost. You can get a consultation with one of our marketing specialists and let them know your budget and how many leads you're wanting, and they can help make some recommendations for you. But we have all these cool tools like landing page, squeeze page, the text capture, call and text capture, pitch sheets, things that you can actually create and post on your own that are totally free and pretty easy to do these days, especially with these landing pages and the new custom page editor. And those can help drive new traffic and drive lead generation, all for free. And then we also have the marketplace solutions. What I love about our marketplace is we don't just add solutions in here. Everything in here has been fully vetted by us. It's been tested and proven to deliver results for your business. And they're deeply integrated into the platform, meaning, anytime you get a lead solution from the marketplace, all of your leads are going to come in with that source, a hashtag, so you can easily manage them and nurture them. They'll hook up to the automation so you can trigger a smart campaign for all the new leads that come from a certain source. And really, this is going to help you and your leads have the best experience possible and give you more opportunity to focus on the things that require more of your proactive or manual time. Okay, so let's talk about being connected. This is, like I said, it's about driving conversations. Conversations has been a huge topic in the industry. We had a big, you heard rumblings of it, and then we had Unite, which is our user conference in April. And so many leaders in the space were talking about driving conversations. I said lead gen is a problem, conversion's a problem. And if you think about those two things as point A and point B, what's in the middle? I guess point B is probably not the best. Point A to point C, maybe. But point B would be your conversations. You can't have transactions without having conversations. And a new lead without a conversation is really just a name, right? So what can you do to drive more conversations? What do you do with these new leads when they come in? There's this piece about understanding the consumer. I think there's a couple points here that I'll point out that are really important for you to understand. And this does tie back to the tech again, because we have different ways for you to label and categorize leads who fall under some of these categories, and allows you to effectively nurture them until they're ready to talk to you. So one thing I wanted to point out is, I said earlier, 90% of consumers start their search online. That's just a fact. We know that. We know that pictures and details of homes are the number one driver of online lead engagement. We know that, right? Everybody loves pictures and details of homes. Even people who maybe aren't fully committed to buying or selling are looking at pictures and details of homes. Even, whether they're wondering about what is my home worth, what's in the market right now, or maybe I'm wondering what kind of homes are out there right now. Maybe I'm interested in moving. A lot of the consumers don't want to talk to agents. And I'm sure you feel this on a daily basis. You get people who register as a lead, and then they totally ghost you when you reach out and try to connect with them. And that's okay. If you understand that what they're doing is they're just trying to put a little bit of a barrier because they're not really sure what they want. And until they're sure, they don't want to talk to you. And that's okay. So they want to hide behind the wall of the internet. They want to gather as much information and content as they possibly can on their own. And you have a big opportunity there to be a good resource for them and help keep them coming back to you instead of going on other portals. So there's also four primary demographics of consumers who are shopping today. I think what's important about that is to understand that you've got people in the baby boomer generation who probably like phone calls and door knocking and postcards, and they like to be communicated with in a certain way. They're probably on Facebook. Facebook is probably their social media platform of choice, right? And then you've got Gen Z who they don't want to talk to people. They've got major social anxiety and they're very tech savvy. And you're more likely to connect with them if it's through email, text message, and really nurturing them and feeding them information until they're ready to raise their own hand and say, okay, I'm ready to talk to you. If you try to insert a conversation too early with that demographic, you're probably going to lose your audience. So this really helps us to understand why some people are responsive and why some are not, and why some marketing and communication strategies are effective and some are not. And understanding that can really help you tailor the experience and how you focus your energy and on which demographics to really be the most helpful. We also know that there's a huge emphasis on neighborhood and school data. Going back to demographics, we know that different things are important to different people as well. So, baby boomers, they might be looking for a vacation home, or maybe they're trying to downsize. They've had this family home for a long time and they just don't need it anymore. It's a lot of work for them. And then you've got millennials who might need to upgrade. Maybe they've got, a lot of kids, or they're, hitting a different kind of financial phase in life and they're ready to upgrade and get something bigger or better. And then Gen Z, I know in reading some articles about them that it's really important to them that they're close to work if they have to commute. They're really, really financially conscious and they're trying to save money and cut spend wherever they can. And that can make buying or selling a home easier. It can make it challenging, right? So understanding those kind of things. Also, this one, 72% of consumers work with the first agent they talk to. And this is true even if they spoke with you a year ago and they've just been on your website looking at content for the last year. If they had a conversation with you, they're likely going to transact with you. And then looking for a personalized experience. We already talked about that, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time there. I want to talk about the consumer timeline a little bit. We've got these different phases. This is how we think about the consumer timeline. So I know I've touched on this a little bit and you'll hopefully remember as I'm going through some of these points. But phase one for buyers and sellers is over a year, maybe just by a few months, but generally we see this lasting anywhere from 12 to 18 months. And what happens is this is where they start to become curious about the market and about real estate. They might be curious about what their home is worth. They might, be curious about what's out there and can I afford something that's better than the situation I'm in right now. And so there's nothing really pushing them into phase two or phase three. They're just kind of getting interested. They may not even realize that they're a lead yet. But what happens is if they go and they start looking at this information online, lead capture forms pop up, right? Especially in this day and age. If we look back 15 years ago, maybe even more now, my age is showing, 15, 20 years ago when we started getting lead capture forms online, and basically we know that leads were registering and they were kind of like, someone's reached out to me, and automation was new and it was delightful. But today, with that happening on every single platform they interact with, they're very aware that they're being captured as a lead, And they're also very okay with ignoring communication until they're ready because they know they're a lead. But it's still worth it to them to register as a lead because they want the information that you have, right? So that's why this relevant content lives over between phase 1 and phase 2, because that's the best way that you can engage with those audiences until they're a little bit further down the timeline. So yeah, they're not really interested in your value proposition. They don't really care how much experience you have. They care about what kind of content you have on your website and if it's what they need, what they're looking for. Phase 2 leads, this is a lot shorter. In my opinion, this is sort of the sweet spot when you generate a lead, because they're willing to have a conversation with you, and getting the insight from them is more valuable than anything else. So if they're willing to talk to you, even if they say, I'm a year out, or I'm 8 months out, or I need XYZ in order for this to actually happen, you're having a conversation with them and they're willing to give you information that you can use to better nurture or support them. And then phase 3, I think this is actually where everybody wants their leads to be because they're ready to transact, right, within 3 to 6 months. And, that can be great. However, if you have a lot of phase 3 leads coming in, you run the risk of not being able to give them the kind of attention and support they need, and maybe providing not such a stellar customer experience. So just something to keep in mind here. And our keywords are pre-research. That's our phase 1. If you call them and they say, I'm just looking, or I'm not interested, what they mean is, I'm not ready to talk yet or commit to anything yet. So keep them in your database and just keep sending them information. And then when they're in phase 2, we call this active research. That's when they're going to start raising their hand and saying, okay, I have questions now. Or, what does this look like? Because I'm getting ready, right? So hopefully that's helpful. And I just skipped a really important slide here, folks, but I'll go back. What is your number one goal when you get a new lead? You already know the answer if you paid attention to the next slide. But I hear a lot of people say, my goal when I get a new lead is to get the transaction, or get another appointment, or build trust, or, all sorts of things like that. And whatever you're thinking in your mind, I'm sure it's right. Those are great answers. But I want to just take you outside of your head for just a moment, because a lot of those are outcomes or their next steps, right? Your ultimate goal when you get a new lead has got to be stop the search. Because we know leads become leads 8 to 10 times before they ever talk to an agent. And we know how many agents are seeing on these big portals when they're going and searching for information. How are you going to differentiate yourself and stop them from talking to other agents, stop them from going to other sites as much as possible? How are you going to eliminate the competition? Your goals with Stop the Search are increase engagement with either you or your website. So get them to either have a conversation with you or continue coming back to your website, engaging with your website, because that means you do have the information they want and need, and they're less likely to go out and search on competitor websites. Okay. So these 4 strategies to drive lead engagement, this is how you're going to stop the search. Okay. And these are tools that live in the BoldTrail platform. We've got search alerts, we've got monthly market reports, similar and nearby listings, and smart campaigns and behavioral automation. They're all connected. And what they do is every single one of these tools drives traffic back to your website. From a lead generation standpoint, these are great tools too. But for lead engagement, they're great because we know they're valuable to consumers. We know that this is the relevant content they're looking for, and they engage really highly with this kind of information. So what happens is when you're using these tools, you're providing value, and you're also receiving really valuable behavioral insights, because as they come in and they're looking at the listings on the search alerts or clicking around or revisiting your website, all of that information gets logged into the contact record in BoldTrail. And then you can go look at each contact and go, wow, this person's really active. And if you're using something like the behavioral automation, that will actually alert you to high intent behaviors. When leads are doing things that would indicate that they're active or becoming active, you get a notification, and then it also helps get that speed to lead and start a conversation. So, my goodness, I'm having issues again. There we go. Okay, so the secret to staying involved, and I may sound repetitive here, but bear with me, you have to have paths back to your website. And whether that's clickable links or ads or QR codes or whatever it is, it could be print, it could be digital, you have to have ways for people to end back up on your website. And what are you sending out in those clickable links? You're sending compelling content, right? So things that are super relevant to where they are in their journey. It's got to add value, whether they're in phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3. It should have a call to action. So it should have something like, click here, sign up for my free newsletter, call me if you want a free home valuation. And then it's got to be really easy for them to find. And then we've got this question, because everybody asked me, well, what is relevant content? I've broken out a few examples here that we know work. So for phase 1, which is your top of funnel leads, it's educational and informative. So this could be things like, what happens in the buyer's process, or what's happening in the market right now, or what's going on in my community. It doesn't necessarily have to be related to buying and selling homes. It just has to be educational and informative. It can be really generic. This is one reason phase 1 leads are great, because generic content appeals to a much broader audience. And some of the content you post might actually even capture some people and engage people who are in phase 2 and phase 3. Guides are wonderful. So if you've got area guides, buying or selling tips, update your curb appeal, things like that. And then, like I said, listings, pictures, details of homes, that's your number 1 driver. Mid-funnel are going to be a bit more tailored and specific. So these people are a little bit more engaged. You can see more behavioral insights, what they're engaging with, what's important to them, and they're probably answering specific questions. So things like FAQs, this is where you can really start to insert your value prop when they're asking questions. Oh, yeah, I've done this for 5 years, or this is really effective, I've done this several times. When they're asking questions about their specific situation, they probably are asking more specific area information about certain neighborhoods or schools, things like that. And then your niche could come in really handy too. Bottom funnel, everybody's really familiar with bottom funnel. This is very, very tailored. It's very personalized, and it's really based off of what they're interacting with, what kind of questions they're bringing to you, and they're a lot more serious and engaged in general in this phase. If we talk about behavioral insights, though, there's nothing more relevant than what a lead is already engaging with. So this is another thing I see agents kind of going, well, I need to make a blog or a newsletter or, whatever. But I would say cut all of that out and just focus on what the system has for you. And BoldTrail actually gives you insights into these behavior triggers. So you can see which homes they're looking at. If they've saved a home, they can set up their own listing alerts, which I love. I don't know if you realize this, but on your BoldTrail website, if a lead registers, next time they visit your website, it's sort of a user portal experience. So it has a little profile with the person's name, and they have a list of saved homes, and they actually get this really personalized experience on your BoldTrail website when they revisit. And then when they're revisiting after they've not been active for a while, or if they look at a certain property within a certain time frame, a certain number of times, there are all these high intent behaviors, and BoldTrail will notify you, hey, this person's becoming active. Here's a little green flag. You should reach out to them, right? And so, yeah, nothing's more engaging than things that they're already interested in. And really what your job is, because BoldTrail does a lot of this, it's really geared to new leads. It's already got a ton of content that we know they're interested in. And so your job really is being on the lookout for those behavioral insights and reaching out to people when they're ready. And you can see that here. I just wanted to show you this screen. This is your BoldTrail platform. When you log in, you can see somebody, oh, this person is a new lead. They registered, they looked at this home, and you can see all your lead activity right here. And then these little contact tiles or activity tiles are great because you can click on them and you can see the whole history of the contact, what they've been engaging with. And then you can reach out right from there as well, send a text, email, you can call them, whatever it is that you need to do to get connected with them. And then we know that these stats are true. We've actually been in this space for a really long time, and because of that, we've got a pretty broad reach, and we have data that tells us that these are the things that move the needle. So we talked a lot about adding new leads. So if you're adding 40 or more new leads per month, your agents who do that are selling 5 times more than other agents. Agents who log in 20 times a month, so that's almost every working day, they do 9 times the transaction volume of agents who are logging in 1 time or less per week in the BoldTrail platform. So the more you use BoldTrail, the more effective you are. And then we also know that agents who have 50% or more of their contacts on automation, so that's your search alerts, smart campaigns, market reports, those agents are having 3 times the transaction volume. Pretty cool stats. I wanted to share those with you. And then we also have learning opportunities for you. So we have BoldTrail Training, which helps a lot with your out of the box. How does this work? What do I do with it? And then we've got this Bold Academy that's more tailored toward giving you access to coaching, different kinds of content, business planning, accountability, and tools that are just really going to help you maximize on your lead gen and your investments in the platform. Excuse me. One moment. So we connect you with coaches, industry experts, top producers, and we really put a focus on how you can implement successful strategies that we know work into your business so you can be successful. And there's a mixture of content in here. There are live webinars, there are on-demand courses, and short form and long form videos. There are downloadable tools, and there's an awesome community of agents and brokers that you can connect with. But our goal is really to help you personalize your platform and have success with that, because your success is our success. And then if we just go over here to some future innovations, there are a few things I wanted to touch on. Excuse me, I keep having a dry throat. Okay, so Home Search AI is awesome. It's one of the tools I'm really looking forward to. AI, as you know, and as I talked about before, is becoming a huge player in the space. And we have seen firsthand how it empowers agents to level up their business. It changes everything. Really, AI changes everything that we thought search could be. It is smarter. It delivers more personalized results, and it uses natural feeling language that keeps your consumers coming back to you and off of the big portal sites. AI, if you give it a chance, is one of those tools that can really help you stop the search and stay connected. There is a really cool feature with this match potential, and it has match percentages that will surface the most likely homes that your consumers are going to love that they didn't even know they would like. So we have another feature that's more manual called similar and nearby listings. And what you do is when someone clicks on your website and they look at a listing, you can click on that listing too. And there's a button that says similar listings and a button that says nearby listings. And it allows you to just click a button. There's this curated list of homes that are similar or nearby. You select a list, the whole list, or whichever ones you want to send, click send, and it sends those to your contact. You're adding value. You're saying, hey, I saw that you looked at this home. Here are a few more that are similar or nearby. I just didn't want you to miss these. Well, this home search AI basically takes that and automates it. And then it says, hey, check out these matches for this listing. And they are similar and nearby homes that have a high match potential. So really neat.